Hello and welcome to this second exploring session looking at Galatea by John Lyly. Today we are continuing our journey to the end of the play, going from Act 3, Scene 3 to the bitter or joyful end. We shall find out. We were discussing last time, as everyone was enjoying the play so much, whether the ending is going to be a terrible, terrible, crushing disappointment, or whether it's going to fulfill all the promise that the players so far instigated. We're going to find out in a very few number of hours. Stand by for action. Anything can happen in the next 2 hours. So, without further ado, before we leap into Act 3, Scene 3, if you want to know the plots of the story so far, there's a video you can watch beforehand, which covers all of that. You can watch that. It's fine. We'll vaguely hint at what's going on for those who want to catch up. But otherwise, we're going to tell you who's going to be reading today. The wonderful readers, including reading Alchemist and Robin, is...
Aliki, Chapple, actor, translator, and theatre maker based in the north of England.
Reading Rafe and Hebe is...
Helen Good, based in Yorkshire, historian.
Reading an astronomer and Melebeus today is...
Lynn, a college writing teacher. I live in the northwestern United States.
Reading Diana and Ericthinis is...
Hello, I'm Sarah Blake. I'm an actor, writer and director living in Germany.
Reading Larissa and Phillida is...
Alexandra, and I'm here.
It's a good place to be. It's where all the cool kids are. Reading Telusa, Populus 1, as well as Venus is...
Hi, I'm Rachael, an actor.
Reading Eurota, Populus number 2, and Dick is...
Hi, I'm Alan Scott, based in Suffolk.
Reading Ramia and Peter today is...
Hi, I'm Lois, retired academic living in London.
Reading Tyterus is...
I'm Eric, and I don't know what day it is. I mean, I never do, so it's fine.
It's good to have a system. Reading Cupid and Galatea is...
Hi, I'm Tamara. I'm an actress, and I think I'm here.
And finally, reading Augur, Neptune with accompanying performing dog is...
Hi, I'm Francis Cox. I'm an actor living in Amsterdam.
And I'm slightly disappointed we didn't have a single bark. There we are.
There he is.
Nice on cue.
So yes, we may have multiple barking incidents occurring. I'm sure it will be fine. I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I hopefully will be reading nobody, but I will step in the event that Francis' his connection with the universe is interrupted by small furry animals. Otherwise, we're going to be leaping into Act 3, Scene 3. For the story so far, basically everybody loves Galatea and Phillida, who are ladies disguised as men, and all the nymphs love them. They love each other, but they don't want to reveal who they really are. There's a subplot going on as well involving a chap called Rafe and an alchemist, and it is that where we are going to join now as we go into Act 3, Scene 3, enter Alchemist and Rafe.
Rafe, my boy is run away. I trust thou wilt not run after.
I would I had a pair of wings that I might fly after.
My boy was the veriest thief, the arrantest liar, and the wildest swearer in the world. Otherwise, the best boy in the world. He hath stolen my apparel, all my money, and forgot nothing but to bid me farewell.
Oh, that I will not forget. Farewell, master.
Why, thou hast not yet seen the end of my art.
I would I had not known the beginning. Did you not promise me of my silver thimble to make a whole cupboard of plate? And that of a Spanish needle you would build a silver steeple?
Why, Rafe, the fortune of this art consisteth in the measure of the fire. For if there be a coal too much, or a spark too little, if it be a little too hot, or a thought too soft, all our labour is in vain. Besides, they that blow must beat time with their breaths, as musicians do with their breasts. So as there must be of the metals, the fire and the workers have very harmony.
Nay, if you must weigh your fire by ounces and take measure of a man's blast, You may then make a dram of wind a wedge of gold, and of the shadow of 1 shilling make another, so as you have an organist attuned to your temperatures.
So is it. And often doth it happen that the just proportion of the fire and all things concur.
Concur, dog, I will away.
Then away.
And exit the alchemist.
An art, quoth you, that one multiplieth so much all day, that he wanteth money to buy meat at night.
And enter an astronomer.
But what have we yonder? What devout man? He will never speak till he be urged. I will salute him. Sir, there lieth a purse under your feet. If I thought it were not yours, I would take it up.
Dost thou not know I was calculating the nativity of Alexander the Great's horse?
Why, what are you?
An astronomer.
What? One of those that makes almanacs?
Ipsissimis, I can tell the minute of thy birth, the moment of thy death, and the manner. I can tell thee what weather shall be between this and octogesimus octavus mirabilis annus. When I list, I can set a trap for the sun, catch the moon with lime twigs, and go a bat fowling for stars. I can tell thee things past and things to come, and with my cunning measure how many yards of clouds are beneath the sky. Nothing can happen which I foresee not. Nothing shall.
I hope, sir, you are no more than a god.
I can bring the 12 signs of the zodiacs and hang them up in taverns.
I pray you, sir, tell me what you cannot do, for I perceive there is nothing so easy for you to compass as impossibilities. But what be these signs?
As a man should say, signs which govern the body. The ram governeth the head.
Ooh, that's the worst sign for the head.
Why?
Because it is a sign of an ill you.
Tush, that sign must be there. Then the bull for the throat, Capricornus for the knees.
I will hear no more signs, if they be all such desperate signs. But seeing you are, I know not what to term you. Shall I serve you? I would fain serve.
I accept thee.
Happy am I, for now I shall reach thoughts, and tell how many drops of water goes to the greatest shower of rain. You shall see me catch the moon in the clips like a coney in a purse net.
I will teach thee the golden number, the epact and the prime.
I'll meddle no more with numbering of gold, for multiplication is our miserable action. I pray, sir, what weather shall we have this our 60 year?
That I must cast by our judicials astronomical. Therefore, come in with me, and you shall see every wrinkle of my astrological wisdom. And I will make the heavens as plain to thee as the highway. Thy cunning shall sit cheek by jowl with the sun's chariot. Then shalt thou see what a base thing it is to have others' thoughts creep on the ground, whenas thine shall be stitched to the stars.
Then I shall be translated from this mortality.
Thy thoughts shall be metamorphosed and made hail fellows with the gods.
Oh, fortune! I feel my very brains moralized, and as it were, a certain contempt of earthly actions is crept into my mind by an ethereal contemplation. Come, let us in.
And exeunt Rafe with the astronomer out of one useless employer into the arms of another. With lots of activity on the chat discussing. Yes, did we hear a fart joke there? Yes, with the opinion of the room seems to be heading in that direction. And yes, questions of cuckoldry there about the ram being on your head there. Though whether I want to have goat knees, I'm not 100% certain. There's a bull for the throat. That's debatable. Thoughts in the room about Rafe and his revolving door of useless employers. I mean, do they pay well? They're clearly a handful. Lois, then Alexandra.
I think all these shipwrecked guys are looking for jobs just because they have to have somebody to feed them. I find this quite funny, actually. I mean, lovely satire on various suspect professions.
Yes, to be honest, I've met many people like this astronomer. Alexandra.
Yes, I want to sort of reiterate Helen's point from yesterday, but now about a different profession. It's something we were talking about in the chat, is that the astronomer is an astronomer at a time when half of that is astrology. So yes, as Lois is saying, there's this satire of professions that at the time would have been part science and part belief and kind of esoteric, that nowadays we've split off from each other and have much stronger opinions about. And the animals per body part thing, that's an astrological thing, where they each one, as you go lower down the body, you go further down the calendar, I think, which gives some really weird associations.
Yes, in modern terms, the astronomer is an astrologer. I mean, it's the mystic Meg.
I think
Lois.
the point of those signs is that if you're going to bleed someone, then it depends on which sign you're under, and then which bit you're going to take blood from. I think that's the logic of it.
Other thoughts from the room? Did I see Rachael earlier? I may have not have done. It may all be a lie. Other thoughts from other people? Rachael.
It's just a little bit of a reiteration, but the part about telling him what won't and won't be, just also like that. Like in astrology, there's like the birth chart, and you have all your planets in a certain sign, or what planets that they believed in, like at the time, before we discovered more with better technology.
Oh, no, trust me. I've met people who would very much say something along the lines of, "Dost thou not know I was calculating the nativity of Alexander's great horse?" I've met people who would do something very similar to that. So there's elements of this that are very, very translatable to now. Helen.
I think one of the decisions you have to make is just how knowing Rafe is. I mean, he seems to me to be slightly gullible, but easily disillusioned. But I mean, it could be that he is in on the joke all the way through. But with the mariner, with the alchemist, now with the astrologer, he's very keen at the beginning, or at any rate hopeful.
Yeah, I'm seeing him sort of very terrier-like. He's very, very keen, enthusiastic, and but then doesn't know what to do with it. Alan, then Eric.
I'm just wondering. I know the alchemist and the astronomer can't double because they literally cross each other on the way on and off the stage. But you could almost put those two and the mariner together as being effectively the clown role, and Rafe is acting as feed to all three.
Yeah, I've done quick changes, but than you'd have here. I mean, he's got 15 words to or thereabouts to change. He could get off stage and come back on again with a different hat on. Whether that would be worth the effort is, but yeah, it's doable.
Or reverse the cloak.
Lois, then I'll go to Eric again.
I sort of see Rafe and the other boys as probably the smallest boys in the company. I mean, the ones that tend to be pages in other plays. They seem to always be together like this, and they generally have a song as well. So they're probably the ones with unbroken voices who sound particularly good.
Yeah, there's a cuteness factor to this. But that said, we've only really met Rafe in this sense. The others haven't really figured apart from that first scene. So they said they're going to meet up in a year, and then we've only really followed Rafe so far. Eric, then Aliki.
I was just going to say that I think Rafe and the potential, sort of interviews, the professions that he tries out, basically they're both useless. Not just not just Rafe or not just the people he's interning under, but both of them. So that's why it kind of works, I guess.
Yes, intern from hell. Aliki. Sorry, Helen, yes.
The mariner was actually quite competent. I mean, he got them ashore from the shipwreck, but he wouldn't take them on because they were so obviously useless.
Yeah, so it's more...
Also, they, having been shipwrecked, they decided against a career at sea.
Which is not unreasonable. Yes, Aliki. Muted at present.
So Rafe goes from the alchemist who disappeared his money, right, to somebody else who has a purse under his foot while he's calculating about it. It's all about money, and the alchemist took his silver, promising to multiply it, and didn't. And now, purse of gold, purse of something, I don't know. Is his next boss going to be working with copper, is my question.
Anyway, we need to move on. We may have additional thoughts about Rafe and his continual, ever-changing array of potential masters as we go into Act 3, Scene 4, and we're going to trouble in paradise as enter Diana and the various nymphs, Tolosa, Eurota, Ramia, and Larissa.
What news have we here, ladies? Are all in love? Are Diana's nymphs become Venus's wantons? Is it a shame to be chaste because you be amiable, or must you needs be amorous because you are fair? Oh, Venus, if this be thy spite, I will requite it with more than hate. Well shalt thou know what it is to drib thine arrows up and down Diana's lees. There is an unknown nymph that straggleth up and down these woods, which I suspect hath been the weaver of these woes. I saw her slumbering by the brookside. Go, search her and bring her. If you find upon her shoulder a burn, it is Cupid. If any print on her back like a leaf, it is Medea. If any picture on her left breast like a bird, it is Callisto. Whoever it be, bring her hither, and speedily bring her hither.
I will go with speed.
And exit Tolosa.
Go you, Larissa, and help her.
I obey.
And exit Larissa.
Now, ladies, doth not that make your cheeks blush, that makes mine ears glow? Or can you remember that without sobs, which Diana cannot think on without sighs? What greater dishonour could happen to Diana, or to her nymph's shame, than that there can be any time so idle that should make their heads so addle? Your chaste hearts, my nymphs, should resemble the onyx, which is hottest when it is whitest, and your thoughts, the more they are assaulted with desires, the less they should be affected. You should think love like Homer's moly, a white leaf and a black root, a fair show and a bitter taste. Of all trees, the cedar is the greatest, and hath the smallest seeds. Of all affections, love hath the greatest name, and the least virtue. Shall it be said, and shall Venus say it? Nay, shall it be seen, and shall wanton see it, that Diana, the goddess of chastity, whose thoughts are always answerable to her vows, whose eyes never glanced on desire, and whose heart abateth the point of Cupid's arrows, shall have her virgins to become unchaste in desires, immoderate in affection, untemperate in love, in foolish love, in base love. Eagles cast their evil feathers from the sun, but you cast your best desires upon a shadow. The birds' ibis lose their sweetness when they lose their sights, and virgins all their virtues with their unchaste thoughts. Unchaste, Diana calleth that hath either any show or suspicion of lightness. Oh, my dear nymphs, if you knew how loving thoughts stain lovely faces, you would be as careful to have the one as unspotted as the other beautiful. Cast before your eyes the loves of Venus trulls, their fortunes, their fancies, their ends. What are they else but Silenus' pictures without, lambs and doves within, apes and owls who like the Ixion embrace clouds for Juno, the shadows of virtue instead of the substance? The eagle's feathers consume the feathers of all others, and love's desire corrupteth all other virtues. I blush, ladies, that you have been heretofore patient of labours, should now become prentices to idleness, and use the pen for sonnets, not the needle for samplers. And how is your love placed? Upon pelting boys, perhaps base of birth, without doubt weak of discretion. Ay, but they are fair. Oh, ladies, do your eyes begin to love colours whose hearts will want to loathe them? Is Diana's chase become Venus's court? And are your holy vows turned to hollow thoughts?
Madam, if love were not a thing beyond reason, we might then give a reason of our doings. But so divine is his force that it worketh effects as contrary to that we wish, as unreasonable against that we ought.
Lady, so unacquainted are the passions of love that we can neither describe them nor bear them.
Oh, foolish girls, how willing you are to follow that which you should fly. But here cometh Tolosa.
Re-enter Tolosa and other with Cupid.
We have brought the disguised nymph, and have found on his shoulders Psyche's burn, and he confesseth himself to be Cupid.
How now, sir? Are you caught? Are you Cupid?
Thou shalt see, Diana, that I dare confess myself to be Cupid.
And thou shalt see, Cupid, that I will show myself to be Diana, that is, conqueror of thy loose and untamed appetites. Did thy mother Venus, under the colour of a nymph, send thee hither to wound my nymphs? Doth she add craft to her malice, and mistrusting her deity, practise deceit? Is there no place but my groves, no person but my nymphs? Cruel and unkind Venus, that spiteth only chastity, thou shalt see that Diana's powers shall revenge thy policy and tame this pride. As for thee, Cupid, I will break thy bow and burn thine arrows, bind thy hands, clip thy wings, and fetter thy feet. Thou that fattest others with hopes shall be fed thyself with wishes, and thou that bindest others with golden thoughts shall be bound thyself with golden fetters. Venus's rods are made of roses, Diana's of briars. Let Venus, that great goddess, ransom Cupid, that little god. These ladies here, whom thou hast infected with foolish love, shall both tread on thee and triumph over thee. Thine own arrow shall be shot into thine own bosom, and thou shalt be enamoured, not on Psyche's, but on Circe's. I will teach thee what it is to displease Diana, distress her nymphs, or disturb her game.
Diana, what I have done cannot be undone, but what you mean to do shall. Venus hath some gods to her friends, Cupid shall have all.
Are you prating? I will bridle thy tongue and thy power, and in spite of mine own thoughts, I will set thee a task every day, which, if thou finish or not, thou shalt feel the smart. Thou shalt be used as Diana's slave, not Venus's son. All the world shall see that I will use thee like a captive and show myself a conqueror. Come, have him in, that we may devise apt punishments for his proud presumptions.
Plague ye for a little god.
Well, we will never pity thee, though thou be a god.
Nor I.
Nor I.
And they exit with Cupid. And that's the end of the scene, and indeed the end of the act as as stated, there Diana, who clearly likes the sound of her own voice. Not short little speeches there. Some really good material though, and yeah, I put in the chat. I just like the idea. Diana knows all the dodgy demigods out there. Got a list that Cupid, dear, Callisto. Oh, you don't want them turning up. So yeah, you're very disappointed, aren't you, with your gang? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Thoughts in the room? Sorry, Sarah first.
I thought it was quite entertaining the way the nymphs were like 1 minute all like, oh yeah, but we can't help it, we're in love. And then once Diana had got hold of Cupid and saying what she was going to do to him, they were all like, oh yeah, we're just gonna shun you, yeah, little god. Ooh. And I'm like, wow, that was a quick turnaround. That was practically Republican in their ability to sort of shift position there. It made me laugh.
Other thoughts in the room? Helen?
There is there was an interesting theory that love was in fact a form of madness. It was irrational. It was folly. It was something you were infected with. I mean, this comes up over and over again in comedies, that there's nothing you can do about love. You've got to sweat it out and recover from it. And that it is, on the whole, it takes away your reason. Well, and I think we've got a version of that here, that Diana is saying, try harder.
Well, I believe there have been studies that found scanning the brains of people in love find that they're remarkably like being on LSD and other chemical substances, though that may or may not be accurate. Lots of hands up, so I'll go Eric, Aliki, then Lynn.
I think it depends how you play the role, because like if you cast her as like sort of Miss Trunchbull, then you have a problem, I think, because then it kind of undermines it, like someone who locks people away kind of thing. But then if you have her as a sort of genuinely upset goddess, then it can be very sort of, she can sound perfectly reasonable.
Yes, set up a system, and it's being broken by this little sod. Aliki.
So I agree with Eric, but I also like, because we've been talking about the gendered nature of power, the kind of, I bet I know who's behind this. It's his mother. And then as soon as he turns up, it's like, so your mother put you up to this, did she?
Very Greek.
Yeah. Lynn.
So, yeah, as Helen observed, there is this figuration of love as being independent of reason. We saw that actually in Lyly's Campaspe, where Alexandra the Great says, I will give her lots of reasons to love me. And his interlocutor says, reason and love, there's no overlap in those Venn diagrams, or however he put it. That basically, love doesn't respond to reason. So Lyly has expounded that idea before. What I wanted to make a brief observation about is this line of Cupid's, what I have done cannot be undone, and what you mean to do shall be undone. So, and I think maybe there's more to that maybe is a little more profound than it seems on the surface, that once a person is in love, once a person has experienced desire, they're a different person. Chastity is always kind of vulnerable and always undoable, and you can't get it back. So everything that Diana tries to do can be reversed, but nothing that Cupid does, nothing that love does to you can be reversed. You're a different person. You've sort of crossed a line once you've left that world of chasteness. And that's just, I think it's a problem that the Renaissance was interested in.
Yeah, you can break my bow and arrow as much as you like, but I can always make another set. Yeah, it's a really nice thought. Alexandra.
I just wanted to point out her difference in strategy and in attitude between how kind and gentle and she scolds the nymphs, but she doesn't kind of shout at them going, "What are you, stupid? What are you doing?" She sort of reasons with them, "Look, this isn't good for you, and it's not real, and it's not, you think it's heartfelt, but this is just an infatuation." And the way that she treats Cupid, and well, the way that she threatens to treat him. So I thought that was interesting, one, because it makes the scene be more varied, but also two, because she doesn't seem to address chastity from what we now consider to be a sort of a masculine author perspective type of thing, where that would be the thing that she's very adamant about. So it's not that love isn't a good thing, it's that no, you must preserve your maidenhead. It's not about that. It's from a much more sensitive perspective, even though that's what she's the goddess of.
Lovely. We need to move forward into Act 4, so hold on to any thoughts that you haven't articulated so far. Act 4, Scene 1, enter Augur, who we've not met before, Melebeus, Tyterus, and some Populus, some of the Populus.
This is the day wherein you must satisfy Neptune and save yourselves. Call together your fair daughters, and for a sacrifice take the fairest, for better it is to offer a virgin than suffer ruin. If you think it against nature to sacrifice your children, think it also against sense to destroy your country. If you imagine Neptune pitiless to desire such a prey, confess yourself perverse to deserve such a punishment. You see this tree, this fatal tree, whose leaves, though they glister like gold, yet it threateneth to fair virgins grief. To this tree must the beautifulest be bound until the monster Augur carry her away. And if the monster come not, then assure yourselves that the fairest is concealed, and then your country shall be destroyed. Therefore consult with yourselves, not as fathers of children, but as favorers of your country. Let Neptune have his right, if you will have your quiet. Thus have I warned you to be careful, and would wish you to be wise, knowing that whoso hath the fairest daughter hath the greatest fortune, in losing one to save all. And so I depart to provide ceremonies for the sacrifice, and command you to bring the sacrifice.
And exit the Augur.
They say, Tyterus, that you have a fair daughter. If it be so, dissemble not, for you shall be a fortunate father. It is a holy thing to preserve one's country, and honorable to be the cause.
Indeed, Melebeus, I've heard you boast that you had a fair daughter, than the which none was more beautiful. I hope you are not so careful of a child that you will be careless of your country, or add so much to nature that you will detract from wisdom.
I must confess that I had a daughter, and I know you have, but alas, my child's cradle was her grave, and her swath-clout her winding sheet. I would she had lived till now. She should willingly have died now. But what could have happened to poor Melebeus more comfortable than to be the father of a fair child and sweet country?
O Melebeus, dissemble you may with me. Deceive the gods you cannot. Did not I see, and very lately see, your daughter in your arms, when as you gave her infinite kisses with affection, I fear me more than fatherly, you have conveyed her away, that you might cast us all away, bereaving her the honor of her beauty and us the benefit, preferring a common inconvenience before a private mischief.
It is a bad cloth, Tyterus, that will take no color, and a simple. Father that can use no cunning, you make the people believe that you wish well, when you practicing nothing but ill. wishing to be thought religious towards the god, when I know you deceitful towards men. You cannot overreach me, Tyterus. Overshoot yourself you may. It is a wily mouse that will breed in a cat's ear, and he must halt cunningly that will deceive a cripple. Did you ever see me kiss my daughter? You are deceived. It was my wife. And if you thought so young a piece unfit for so old a person, and therefore imagined it to be my child, not my spouse, you must know that silver hairs delight in golden locks, and the old fancies crave young nurses, and frosty years must be thawed by youthful fires. But this matter aside, you have a fair daughter, Tyterus, and it is pity you are so fond a father.
You are both either too fond or too froward, for whilst you dispute to save your daughters, we neglect to prevent our destruction.
Come, let us away and seek out a sacrifice. We must sift out their cunning and let them shift for themselves.
And exeunt the lovely members of the public there. So, yeah, your daughter's prettier than my daughter. It's such a weird backwards conversation, and but you know, if we take it coming from a very genuine place of trying to save their daughters, the weirdness and the oddness of what they're saying sort of works. I think it's, you know, and there is a comedy to this, of the extremes of which you're going to go to accuse somebody else of things so that you can save a member of your family. And you know that these are not necessarily fully rational arguments is sort of part of the scene. And yeah, those members of the public are yeah, they're not the nicest of people, are they? They're just chuck them on the fire. Who wants to leap in? Alexandra.
Just a very quick opinion point relating to exactly what you just said. At this point, the girls in disguise are the best men around, so no wonder that everyone's in love with them.
Eric.
I was just going to say that this bit just reminds me of the whole Minotaur myth, because it's very sort of, yes, we must send 7 lads and 7 ladies and have them sacrificed because we have to pay tribute. Because and it's like the reasoning just falls apart after a while. It doesn't really have a. It's just because someone said so, basically. Obviously, without it, we wouldn't have a play.
Helen.
Yeah, I mean, it's one girl every 5 years. And they keep on rationalizing this, that in fact, it's a girl. It's not such a great sacrifice as it saves the entire country of Lincolnshire.
Yeah, and frankly, as country pursuits go, this is possibly on a minor league. They're trying to square the circle, aren't they? They're trying to make the Augur makes the case that, you know, for the love of your country, we're going to sacrifice one person every 5 years. Think of your country, don't think of your daughters. And you know, on a certain plane, that certainly seems reasonable to the 2 members of the vox pops that we get from the 2 citizens.
They have no children.
Yeah. We will go out and hunt for yours. Have you checked the barn? So yeah, other thoughts before we move on?
And I think it's funny, this humble brag, your daughter is prettier than mine. But I get a bit lost in the language of it, so I wonder how we would bring that out.
I think there should be some shoving. I think this could be actually a moderately dynamic, especially as, remember, this is in front of an audience. So, you know, just because 2 of them speak doesn't mean that there aren't necessarily more people and crowds and, you know, people are listening to them. This is public speaking again. This isn't a private conversation. So this is semi-performed as well for an audience. That's, I think, why it goes so weird. You know, it's again, it's under pressure. You're trying to come up with any argument, etc. Eric, last thought before we move on.
it is that thing of it felt very like, yeah, they say that you have a fairy daughter, yeah, totally, and then like by the end of it they're fighting, or something. I don't know.
Okay, we're going to go to a little song break now. I'm not going to ask anyone to sing. Act 4, Scene 2. We have all these nymphs on stage, and they're going to do some singing. So enter Cupid, Toulousa, Eurota, Larissa, Ramia. Enter singing, but you can say it. I'll do all the alls.
Oh yes, if any maid, who leering Cupid has betrayed, to frowns of spite, to eyes of scorn, and would in madness be now see torn the boy in pieces.
Let her come hither and lay on him her doom.
Oyez, has any lost a heart which many a sigh hath cost? Is any cozened of a tear which as a pearl disdain does wear? Here stands the thief.
Let her but come hither and lay on him her doom.
Is any one undone by fire and turned to ashes through desire? Did ever any lady weep, being cheated of her golden sleep, stolen by sick thoughts?
The pirate's found, and in her tears he shall be drowned. Read this in his indictment, let him hear what he's to trust to. Boy, give ear.
Come, Cupid, to your task. First you must undo all these lovers' knots, because you tied them.
If they be true love's knots, 'tis impossible to unknit them. If false, I never tied them.
Make no excuse, but to it.
Love knots are tied with eyes, and cannot be undone with hands, made fast with thoughts, and cannot be unloosed with fingers. Had Diana no task to set Cupid to, but things impossible.
And there's an inferred stage direction that they all menace, threaten in some fashion. And then Cupid says,
I will to it.
Aye, how now? You tie the knots faster.
I cannot choose. It goeth against my mind to make them loose.
Let me see. Now, 'tis impossible to be undone.
It is the true love knot of a woman's heart, therefore cannot be undone.
That falls in sunder of itself.
It was made of a man's thought, which will never hang together.
You have undone that well.
Aye, because it was never tied well.
To the rest, for she will give you no rest. These two knots are finely untied.
It was because I never tied them. The one was knit by Pluto, not Cupid, by money, not love, the other by force, not faith, by appointment, not affection.
Why do you lay that knot aside?
For death.
Why?
Because the knot was knit by faith and must only be unknit by death.
I laugh you.
Because it is the fairest and the falsest, done with greatest art and least truth, with best colours and worst conceits.
Who tied it?
A man's tongue.
Why do you put that in my bosom?
Because it is only for a woman's bosom.
Why, what is it?
A woman's heart.
Come, let us go in, and tell that Cupid hath done his task. Stay you behind, Larissa, and see he sleep not, for love will be idle, and take heed you, surfeit not, for love will be wanton.
And exit Toulousa, Ramia, Eurota.
Alone, I will find him somewhat to do.
Lady, can you for pity see Cupid thus punished?
Why did Cupid punish us without pity?
Is love a punishment?
It is no pastime.
Oh, Venus, if thou sawest Cupid as a captive, bound to obey that was wont to command, fearing ladies' threats that once pierced their hearts, I cannot tell whether thou wouldst revenge it for despite, or laugh at it for disport. The time may come, Diana, and the time shall come, that thou that settest Cupid to undo knots, shalt entreat Cupid to tie knots. And you, ladies, that with solace have beheld my pains, shall with sighs entreat my pity.
And he offereth to sleep.
How now, Cupid? Begin you to nod?
Re-enter Ramia and Toulousa.
Come, Cupid, Diana hath devised new labours for you that are god of loves. You shall weave samplers all night, and lackey after Diana all day. You shall shortly shoot at beasts for men, because you have made beasts of men, and wait on ladies' trains, because thou entrappest ladies by trains. All the stories that are in Diana's arras, which are of love, you must pick out with your needle, and in that place sow Vesta with her nuns, and Diana with her nymphs. How like you this, Cupid?
I say I will prick as well with my needle as if I did with mine arrows.
Diana cannot yield. She conquers affection.
Diana shall yield. She cannot conquer destiny.
Come, Cupid, you must to your business.
You shall find me so busy in your heads that you shall wish I had been idle with your hearts.
And they exit. So there's a really nice element that, you know, this is a physical bit of business of tying love knots. You know, there is and that's going on as they're discussing it. So, and it's that Cupid can't help but tie them tighter because that's what he does, and has to be prodded. And then we get these different kinds of love. Those who are not actually in love, so it's not really properly tied because they're only interested in somebody's money. The one not by faith, only unknit by death. And I assume that's love of the one true God. That's how it came in my mind. You know, just random bit of Christian theology thrown into the middle of it. I don't know if I'm wholly wrong on that front. I'm just throwing that one in. Disagree with me if you wish. And then all sorts of other little playful things. And then, as he's obviously very good at playing around with fibers. Going to do some weaving, get him to do some basket weaving, do some samplers, you know, like any good prisoner. That's the kind of job you put them to. Thoughts from the room, disagreements, additional ideas. It's a fun little scene. I quite like that. It's got a lot of potential. I like potential. Lynn?
I just really like the literalization of the abstract in this scene. The love knots become physical love knots. I don't know. I just really like it.
I do too, and it'll be fascinating to make the different knots. How can you tell which one was made by Pluto and which one by true love and so on? But
yeah.
What are we going to do with Bondage Boy? Because you can't avoid it. If he's up there, trust, and everybody's talking about love, it's going to go bondage real fast.
I'm amazed I hadn't gone there already. I'm disappointed in myself. Honestly, I really am. Lois.
These true love knots have been literalized. I seem to remember a bridge in Paris where a lot of people do, in fact, put two things tied with a lock between them and fasten them to the railings of the bridge. I'm not sure if they've done that in London as well. I mean, at one point, I think they were doing it on the Millennium Bridge. So this is something that people could easily recognize.
Oh, yes, that's a good point. Yes. Eric?
I was just going to say the sleep deprivation. I mean, it just sounds like, well, it's because of the, I can't remember when this was written, but it just reminded me of like sort of witch hunt trial kind of things where like they would torment women to sort of tell them the truth and by keeping them awake at night and, well, as long as possible, basically, till they broke. And it was like, I mean, sleep deprivation could also be used for other things, other forms of other torture aims, political or whatever. But I mean, that's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, that insistence that they keep him awake and keep him working. Yeah, that hadn't occurred to me. Yeah, lots of interesting, really interesting thoughts. Whether we want to lean in on that particular one or not is a question for the production. Aliki. No, your hand was just obvious. No, okay, it's just in a position. Okay, we're going to move on we're going to run the next two scenes into each other because one is very, very short. And then we'll go into the next. So Act 4, Scene 3, enter Neptune alone. And the tree that was mentioned earlier is obviously definitely in presence for this scene.
This is the day. This day is the solemn sacrifice at this tree, wherein the fairest virgin were not the inhabitants faithless, should be offered unto me. But so ever careful are fathers to their children, that they forget the safety of their country, and fearing to become unnatural, become unreasonable. Their sleights may blear men, deceive me they cannot. I will be here at the hour, and show as great cruelty as they have done craft. And well shall they know that Neptune should have been entreated, not cozened.
Exit Neptune, Act 4, Scene 4. Enter Galatea and Phillida.
I marvel what virgin the people will present. It is happy you are none, for then it would have fallen to your lot because you are so fair.
If you had been a maiden too, I need not to have feared, because you are fairer.
A prithee, sweet boy, flatter not me. Speak truth of thyself, for in my eye, of all the world, thou art fairest.
These be fair words, but far from thy true thoughts. I know mine own face in a true glass, and desire not to see it in a flattering mouth.
Oh, would I did flatter thee, and that fortune would not flatter me. I love thee as a brother, but love not me so.
Now I will not, but love thee better, because I cannot love as a brother.
Seeing as we are both boys and both lovers, that our affection may have some show and seem as it were love, let me call thee mistress.
I accept that name, for divers before have called me mistress.
For what cause?
Nay, there lie the mistress.
Will you not be at the sacrifice?
No.
Why?
Because I dreamt that if I were there, I should be turned to a virgin, and then being so fair as thou sayest I am, I should be offered as thou knowest one must. But will not you be there?
Not unless I were sure that a boy might be sacrificed and not a maiden.
Why then you are in danger.
Yeah, but I would escape it by deceit. But seeing as we are resolved to be both absent, let us wander into these groves till the hour be past.
I am agreed, for then my fear will be past.
Why, what dost thou fear?
Nothing, but that you love me not.
Exit Galatea.
I will. Poor Phillida, what shouldst thou think of thyself that lovest one that, I fear me, is as thyself is? And may it not be that her father practised the same deceit with her that my father had with me, and, knowing her to be fair, feared she should be unfortunate? If it be so, Phillida, how desperate is thy case! If it be not, how doubtful! For if she be a maiden, there is no hope of my love. If a boy, a hazard. I will after him or her, and lead a melancholy life, that look for a miserable death.
And exit. Let's go into these groves. Nice place to be. Nice place to be in the groves. Thoughts from the room on that? I like the fact that we ran those two together. So we have Neptune reminding everyone of the danger. Again, just a little moment there of Neptune bastardy, and then we have Phillida and Galatea continuing their journey as they slowly creep in that direction of getting closer and closer, but not quite all the delayed the anticipation of where this is going to go. That's the end of Act 4. Thoughts from the room before we get crash into Act 5. Come on, it was a lovely, fascinating scene. Any thoughts?
Lovely little scene. Just
Great, isn't it? I mean,
Sarah.
I was just really happy to get back into their company, because I think, was that the only time they appeared in this whole act? I don't know, but we seem to have had a lot of toing and froing with the more minor characters in this act, which I mean is fun, But I was beginning to kind of miss it a bit. You know, I was like, well, what's happened to the main plot here? Like we've suddenly gone up. We have the Alchemist. Oh, then we have the Astronomer, and we have Rafe, and then we have Diana, and we have Nymphs, and we have Cupid. And it's like, are we ever going to get back to the main story here? So I was kind of really pleased to get back to these two. And it's just a wonderful scene, and it's just so psychologically authentic as well. That thing of like, you know, the two of them not wanting to really like reveal their feelings, but kind of desperate to reveal their feelings, but just testing the water to see how the other ones will say, oh, I just thought it was like beautifully done. Yeah.
Lynn, I stepped over you. Any additional thoughts?
Yeah, it's just so great. The whole device of this play, like, and of course, two boy performers dressed up as girls, dressed up as boys, falling in love with each other. I mean, the utter instability of gender is just so fascinating.
Okay, we only have 3 scenes left. Eric?
I was just going to say it's just cute, like sort of like teenage cute kind of thing, where it's like, you know, just they can't communicate what they want to each other, but they find a way to and also they've been together for ages. So I mean, ages being like in the course of the play. So they're trying to like sort of, yeah.
Alexandra?
I just want to point out that what they are complaining about is not anything self-hating with regards to, or hating the other person with regards to the fact that they are both women. So there's this kind of woe is me because I love this person, and you know our love is not of the standard kind, as opposed to, oh, what a horrible person I am, or what a horrible person they are for it. So I'm loving the lack of homophobia.
Yeah. Helen?
Am I right in thinking that Phillida is more aware than Galatea?
No, they've both realised that the other is probably a girl.
They do.
Oh,
right, right.
I think Phillida tends to be quicker on the uptake from what we've seen of her.
Well, Phillida is slightly less noble with a capital N. In that sense, that you know, there is a marked character difference between them, but I don't think either of them is really any more or less on the uptake of where they are. They realised at the same time, hang on, is this a girl? And they had these overlapping asides where they both pretty much realised at the same time. It's like someone just went. There's a 90s reference for you. Okay, we'll move into Act 5. Act 5, Scene 1. We're back with Rafe, and we're going to be reintroduced to Robin, who we haven't met for a while, who was with him on the shipwreck. I think I'm right on that front. We're also going to be reintroduced to Peter, who was the Alchemist's a lad who ran away. So a reintroduction of all these interesting, probably younger characters. But we start with Rafe alone.
No more masters now, but a mistress if I can light on her. An astronomer. Of all the occupations, that's the worst. Yet well fare the alchemist, for he keeps good fires, though he gets no gold. The other stands warming himself by staring on the stars, which I think he can as soon number as know their virtues. He told me a long tale of Octogesimus Octavus, and the meeting of the conjunctions and planets. And in the meantime, he fell backwards himself into a pond. I asked him why he foresaw not that by the stars, and he said he knew it, but contemned it. But soft, is this not my brother Robin?
It is indeed.
Yes.
Enter Robin.
Yes, as sure as thou art, Rafe.
What Robin? What news? What fortune?
Oh, faith, I have had but bad fortune. Prithee, tell me thine.
I have had 2 masters, not by art, but by nature. One said that by multiplying he would make of a penny 10 pounds.
Aye. But could he do it?
Could he do it, quoth you? Why, man, I saw a pretty wench come to his shop, where with puffing and blowing and sweating, he so plied her that he multiplied her.
How?
Why, he made her of 1, 2.
What? By fire?
Nay, by the philosopher's stone.
Oh, why have philosophers such stones?
Aye, but they lie in a privy cupboard.
Why then, thou art rich, if thou have learned this cunning.
Tush, this was nothing. He would of a little fasting spittle make a hose and doublet of cloth of silver.
Oh, would I had been with him, for I have had almost no meat but spittle since I came to the woods.
How then didst thou live?
Why, man, I served a fortune teller who said I should live to see my father hanged and both my brothers beg. So I conclude the mill shall be mine, and I live by imagination still.
Thy master was an ass, and looked on the lines of thy hands. But my other master was an astronomer, which could pick my nativity out of the stars. I should have half a dozen stars in my pocket if I'd not lost them. But here's Jupiter, Mars, Venus.
Why, these be but names.
Aye, but by these he gathereth that I was a jovialist, born of a Thursday, and that I should be a brave Venerian and get all my good luck on a Friday.
'Tis strange that a fish day should be a flesh day.
Ooh, Robin, Venus orta mari. Venus was born of the sea. The sea will have fish. Fish must have wine. Wine will have flesh. For caro canis genus est muliebre. But soft, here cometh that notable villain that once preferred me to the alchemist.
Enter Peter.
So I had a master, I would not care what became of me.
Robin, thou shalt see me fit him. So I had a servant. I care neither for his conditions, his qualities, nor his person.
Ah, what, Rafe, well met. No doubt you had a warm service of my master, the alchemist.
'Twas warm indeed, for the fire had also almost burnt out mine eyes. Yet my teeth still watered with hunger, so that my service was both too hot and too cold. I melted all my meat and made only my slumber thoughts, and so had a full head and an empty belly. But where hast thou been since?
With a brother of thine, I think, for he hath such a coat, and 2 brothers, as he saith, seeking of fortunes.
And 'tis my brother Dick. I prithee, let's go to him. Oh, sorry.
'Tis my brother Dick. I prithee, let us go to him.
Sirrah, what was he doing that he came not with thee?
Ah, he hath gotten a master now that will teach him to make both you his younger brothers.
Aye, thou passest for devising impossibilities. That as true as thy master could make silver points of tags of points.
Nay, he will teach him to cousin you both, and so get the mill to himself.
Nay, if he be both our cousins, I will be his great-grandfather, and Robin shall be his uncle. But I pray thee bring us to him quickly, for I am great-bellied with conceit till I see him.
Come then and go with me, and I will bring you to him straight.
And exit the parentheses. Yes, a charming, happy tale there of how 2 becomes 1, or 1 becomes 2. With puffing, blowing, and sweating. Boom, boom. Thoughts in the room.
old were these boys who performed this stuff?
That is not an issue.
It's got a whiff of third form humour, hasn't it?
Yeah, that yeah, it's very much in line with these probably quite young lads.
Unbroken voices, so
Yeah, it's hilarious because they're young. It's outrageous.
it's pre-Victorian, so kids are allowed to have.
Yeah, basically, the younger the cast, the ruder the play. I mean, it's a pretty clear rule of thumb. You know, the plays the boy companies can get away with are borderline obscene quite a lot of the time, in a way that the public adult play houses really aren't. Yeah. Other thoughts on this particular scene? I say the introduction of Peter. You know, this what people have been up to on their holidays moment. Any additional thoughts, Helen?
Yes, I mean it's not the first time we found this in Lyly. I think that the apprentices are permanently hungry and constantly comparing their masters. When they talk to their fellow apprentices, they're saying how frightful their life is, how they don't get any sleep, they're kept hungry, they're made to work really hard, but yet they are desperate to have a place, to have service, because otherwise they'll be begging on the street.
Right. Like, what else do you do?
Yeah, and it's the kind of part that presumably is playing into what the kind of actor, you know, this seems to be like shtick that is a conventional shtick that these performers might be doing all the time in other plays as well. So it feels like that's also almost a reason why this material is in this play. You know, in the same way that we had elements of this in Campaspe, which was folded relatively well into the narrative, and in Sappho and Phao gets cast out about halfway through, and then you never meet them again. So it's interesting that it feels that this feels conventional rather than plot driven, and that doesn't bed in quite so neat a way perhaps as it potentially could. Alan?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking that the point Ellen was making there about the apprentices always being permanently hungry is, of course, in common with some of the clown roles that we've looked at in other plays, other authors. You know, so that's part of the reason why I'm looking at these 3/4 lads as being effectively the clown type roles.
Yeah, it's that distinction between something coming from you know, done with children, where it seems to be a more ensemble comedy shtick, you know, than with you know, the playhouse clown, who seems to be, this is one dominant personality or one or two dominant personalities who've got their thing, and they whereas this feels more ensemble-y, and you know, going back to earlier Tudor comedy as well, where the patter overlaps and you've got stuff that flows in that way. You know, this feels like people who work together frequently to produce comic effect, rather than one person with maybe a feed turning up to do their soliloquy that's hilarious and gets the crowd going. It seems to be a slightly different kind of comic turn. I don't know if I'm overstating that. Please fight me if you disagree. I'm just verbalizing thoughts. Eric?
I can fight you later, but on something else. But I mean, just saying that, like, it's interesting how in this they're all related, but that wasn't mentioned at the beginning, as far as I remember.
I think it might have been
It
in
was.
passing, or it was I may have mentioned it. It may not have been in the text. They're definitely three brothers. Yes,
It's in the dramatis personae, certainly.
but whether it's narrated in the text, I'm not 100% certain. We have two more scenes to go. So this is, shall we say, the aperitif to the concluding scene, where we may have too many parts for the actors in the room. I'm not 100% certain. So Act 5, Scene 2, we're going to meet the Augur again, happy, cheerful personage that is, and enter Augur and Ericthinis.
Bring forth the virgin, the fatal version, Virgin, the fairest virgin, if you mean to appease Neptune and preserve your country.
Here she cometh, accompanied only with men, because it is a sight unseemly, as all virgins say, to see the misfortune of a maiden, and terrible to behold the fierceness of Augur, that monster.
And the stage direction we have here, enter Hebe with others to the sacrifice. We can infer that Hebe is going to be bound to this sacrificial tree during the speech that follows.
Miserable and accursed Hebe, that being neither fair nor fortunate, thou shouldst be thought most happy and beautiful. Curse thy birth, thy life, thy death, being born to live in danger, and having lived to die by deceit. Art thou the sacrifice to appease Neptune and satisfy the custom, the bloody custom ordained for the safety of thy country? Ay, Hebe, poor Hebe, men will have it so, whose forces command our weak natures. Nay, the gods will have it so, whose powers dally with our purposes. The Egyptians never cut their dates from the tree because they are so fresh and green. It is thought wickedness to pull roses from the stalks in the garden of Palestine, for that they have so lively a red. And whoso cutteth the incense tree in Arabia before it fall, committeth sacrilege. Shall it only be lawful amongst us in the prime of youth and pride of beauty to destroy both youth and beauty? And what was honoured in fruits and flowers as virtue, to violate in a virgin as a vice? But alas, destiny alloweth no dispute. Die, Hebe, Hebe, die. Woeful Hebe, and only accursed Hebe. Farewell the sweet delights of life, and welcome now the bitter pangs of death. Farewell, you chaste virgins whose thoughts are divine, whose face is fair, whose fortunes are agreeable to your affections. Enjoy and long enjoy the pleasure of your curled locks, the amiableness of your wished looks, the sweetness of your tuned voices, the content of your inward thoughts, the pomp of your outward shows. Only Hebe biddeth farewell to all the joys that she conceived and you hoped for, that she possessed and you shall. Farewell the pomp of princes' courts, whose roofs are embossed with gold, and whose pavements are decked with fair ladies, where the days are spent in sweet delights and the nights in pleasant dreams, where chastity honoureth affections and commandeth, yieldeth to desire and conquereth. Farewell the sovereign of all virtue, the goddess of all virgins, Diana, whose perfections are impossible to be numbered and therefore infinite, never to be matched and therefore immortal. Farewell, sweet parents, yet to be mine unfortunate parents. How blessed had you been in barrenness! How happy had I been if I had not been! Farewell life, vain life, wretched life, whose sorrows are long, whose end is doubtful, whose miseries certain, whose hopes innumerable, whose fears intolerable. Come death, and welcome death, whom nature cannot resist, because necessity ruleth, nor defer, because destiny hasteth. Come, Augur, thou unsatiable monster of maiden's blood, and devourer of beauty's bowels, glut thyself till thou surfeit, and let my life end thine. Tear these tender joints with thy greedy jaws, and those yellow locks with thy black feet, this fair face with thy foul teeth. Why abatest thou thy wonted swiftness? I am fair, I am a virgin, I am ready. Come, Augur, thou horrible monster, and farewell, world, thou vile monster.
And we can infer from the stage direction here that there is some sort of a wait for the monster to appear, but no monster does indeed appear.
The monster is not come, and therefore I see Neptune is abused, whose rage will I fear be both infinite and intolerable. Take in this virgin whose want of beauty hath saved her own life and destroyed all.
We could not find any fairer.
And she is unbound, presumably, at this moment.
Neptune will go deliver her to her father.
Go deliver her to her father.
Fortunate Hebe.
Oh, the gremlins really are coming into the works now. Helen, are you still with us?
How shall I express thy joys? Yes. Can you hear me?
We can now. Do your speech from the top again, please. Fortunate Hebe.
Fortunate Hebe, Hebe, how shall thou express thy joys? Nay, unhappy girl, that art not the fairest. Had it not been better for thee to have died with fame than live with dishonour? To have preferred the safety of thy country and rareness of thy beauty before sweetness of life and vanity of the world. But alas, destiny would not have it so. Destiny could not, for it asketh the beautifulest. I would, Hebe, thou hadst been beautifulest.
Come, Hebe, here is no time for us to reason. It had been best for us thou hadst been the most beautiful.
Exit unhappy father. So this is a really interesting scene, because there's bits of it where you have this elements of Hebe's speech, could be played absolutely straight and this serious, dark thing, but also it's building up to this climax of the monster does not come, and it could be played absolutely also for laughs, and it could be dancing between the two. I mean, it does start with a line which is incredibly difficult not to spoof. Bring forth the virgin is a very difficult line to say. I know I did deliberately be silly there, but it's not an easy one to play without that sense of laugh, and and that sense of slight disappointment when the monster doesn't come, and your moment of fame. All sorts of possibilities here about where this scene goes, and obviously I'm being very silly here, so you can be serious. Aliki,
I just
Lois.
wanted to point out that in the chat we're all going, so patriarchy does this to you, right? The beauty myth says you're not pretty enough to be sacrificed. Sorry, and you feel bad. Wow.
Yeah, well, you also put in the chat the girl who auditioned but was not cast. I mean, I thought that was very appropriate, actually. Lois, then Helen.
I mean, some of that speech is really quite lovely in that traditional contemptus mundi style, but you just don't know at what point it suddenly stops being beautiful and starts being silly. I mean, she could, I think increasingly as the speech goes on, she's getting more and more desperate. She just keeps building up to the big moment when something horrible is going to happen to her. Then it doesn't. Then she starts another speech. Nothing happens. I mean, you could start the waiting for the monster bit a lot earlier, in other words, but it really is a big decision. I mean, how much to emphasize the essentially tragic feeling. I mean, she finds she hates the world by the end, and no wonder. I mean, look what they're doing to her.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. At what point is the crowd? Because we can assume there's probably additional supernumeraries here going, Well, the monster usually turns up by now. And if she's trying to build to a climax in her speech, but then it keeps not, and then tries again, and there could be, and that could also be still also quite sort of affecting in a different way. I mean, there's lots of routes for this that's interesting me. Helen, then Sarah.
I did the editing on this, and this is the only big change that I made. During this speech, Hebe is bound to the sacrificial tree, is put at the end of the speech, and I moved it up and added in the wait for the monster, nothing happens, I think is me, for which I apologize, but I had trouble making sense of what actually was happening until I put that in. The other
and both those stage directions, even in the original version that you had, were inferred later on. They're not from the original printings.
Ah, right. I didn't know that. Also, the roses from the stalks in the Garden of Palestine, I'm sure that must have been Paestum. Because Paestum is where all the great roses came from. I've never heard of this Garden of Palestine. I think it must be Paestum.
Okay. Any additional thoughts before we move on? Sarah, then Lynn, briefly.
If I was directing this, I would be tempted to play this absolutely straight, I think, because this is a really good speech. Lois said it was beautiful. It really is, and it really touches something quite deep, I think. And I would just, I mean, obviously, if you've got someone in the audience who's already seen the play and knows what's coming, then obviously they're going to know, and there's nothing you could do about that. But let's face it, today, how likely is that really? So I would be tempted to play it absolutely straight and really like get whoever was playing Hebe to just go for it in that sort of classical tragic way, with maximum feeling and empathy, because I think you've then got the option of just being horrible to your audience, basically, like putting them through the ringer, which I think the speech is absolutely capable of doing to people, making them, really you want your audience by the end of that speech, or by the end of the major part of the speech, to be almost in tears, if not in tears, and then undercut it with that bathos of the fact that the monster doesn't turn up. You want to take the audience on that emotional roller coaster, because I think if you play it for laughs too early on, you're missing a bit of a trick, honestly.
Lynn, Lois, briefly, please. We do have more scene to get through. Lynn, Lois, Helen.
Yeah, I don't know, because I think you have to bear in mind the meta theater in this moment, because it's not a real person talking, it's an actor, it's a boy pretending to be a girl, and I think there's something analogous to what happens in the plot of the play, where a character makes an amazing, eloquent, heartfelt speech, and then the bingo moment doesn't happen, to an actor making a great speech, and then like the cue doesn't happen, like the person who's supposed to do the clap of thunder with the thunder sheet in the back of the playhouse forgets their thing, or the other person in the scene forgets their cue pickup, and it's like, or the audience doesn't respond the way they're supposed to. This just seems to me kind of an analogous moment to that, where we have this great theatrical moment and it just dies. So I don't know. It's very complicated, very multi-layered.
Yeah, we have these cues at the end where it does seem to be definitely aiming for comedy, and what point? I think this is one we can play with and dance around. I think that we don't have to come up with definite answers here. The question has been raised. Lois, Helen.
Yeah, well, something I don't think I'd ever noticed before is that everybody except Hebe is male in this scene. I mean, women aren't allowed to behold what happens. So this could be really quite horrible if you have, the crowd, oh, come on, Augur, come on, kill her,
Yes, the 3-minute hate or a sort of quality to it. Helen.
Yes, there is a prefiguring of this where the Augur, I think it's the Augur, tells everybody that if they don't get the right girl, the monster won't come. And the audience knows that they haven't got the right girl, and I would cut that line because I think it takes away from the awfulness.
What sorry, which line would you cut?
The one that I think it's the Augur has, which actually explains to them, if the monster come not, then assure yourself that the fairest is concealed and your country shall be destroyed. So
I would have thought that's quite important to the scene.
Yeah.
I think
I think Neptune echoes it as well.
Yeah. But I think what happens is if we know that she's not the right one and she's not going to die, that sort of empties out the
that's the point I was trying to make. Yeah.
Okay, we've got lots of data there. We can sift at our leisure. We have one long scene to get through to close the play, and I'm just going to let it run and see how it goes. So we go into Act 5, Scene 3, enter Phillida and Galatea.
We met the virgin that should have been offered to Neptune. Belike, either the custom is pardoned, or she not thought fairest.
I cannot conjecture the cause, but I fear the event.
Why should you fear? The god requireth no boy.
I would he did, then should I have no fear.
I am glad he doth not, though, because if he did, I should also have cause to fear.
Enter Neptune alone.
Oh, but soft. What man, or god, is this? Let us closely withdraw ourselves into the thickets.
And exeunt Phillida and Galatea, presumably into thickets.
And do men begin to be equal with gods, seeking by craft to overreach them, that by power oversee them? Do they dote so much on their daughters that they stick not to dally with our deities? Well shall the inhabitants see that destiny cannot be prevented by craft, nor my anger be appeased by submission. I will make havoc of Diana's nymphs. My temple shall be dyed with maiden's blood, and there shall be nothing more vile then to be a virgin. To be young and fair shall be accounted shame and punishment, insomuch as it shall be thought as dishonourable to be honest, as fortunate to be deformed.
And enter Diana with her nymphs.
O Neptune, hast thou forgotten thyself, or wilt thou clean forsake me? Hath Diana therefore brought danger to her nymphs, because they be chaste? Shall virtue suffer both pain and shame, which always deserveth praise and honour?
Enter Venus.
Praise and honor, Neptune. Nothing less, except it be commendable to be coy, and honorable to be peevish. Sweet Neptune, if Venus can do anything, let her try it in this one thing, that Diana may find as small comfort at thy hands, as love hath found courtesy at hers. This is she that hateth sweet delights, envieth loving desires, masketh wanting eyes, stoppeth amorous ears, bridleth youthful mouths, and under a name or a word constancy, entertaineth all kind of cruelty. She hath taken my son Cupid, Cupid my lovely son, using him like apprentice, whipping him like a slave, scorning him like a beast. Therefore, Neptune, I entreat thee by no other god than the god of love, that thou, evil, entreat this goddess of hate.
I mused not a little to see you two in this place, at this time, and about this matter. But what say you, Diana? Have you Cupid captive?
I say there is nothing more vain than to dispute with Venus, whose untamed affections have bred more brawls in heaven than is fit to repeat in earth, or possible to recount in number. I have Cupid, and will keep him, not to dandle in my lap, whom I abhor in my heart, but to laugh him to scorn, that hath made in my virgin's heart such deep scars.
Scars, Diana? Call you them that, I know, to be bleeding wounds? Alas, weak deity, it stretcheth not so far, both to abate the sharpness of his arrows and to heal the hurts. No, love's wounds, when they seem green, rankle, and having a smooth skin without, fester to the death within. Therefore, Neptune, if ever Venus stood thee in stead, furthered thy fancies, or shall at all times be at thy command, let either Diana bring her virgins to a continual massacre, or release Cupid of his martyrdom.
It is known, Venus, that your tongue is as unruly as your thoughts, and your thoughts as unstayed as your eyes. Diana cannot chatter, Venus cannot choose.
It is an honor for Diana to have Venus mean ill, when she so speaketh well. But you shall see I come not to trifle. Therefore once again, Neptune, if that be not buried, which can never die, fancy, or that quenched which must ever burn, affection, show thyself the same Neptune that I knew thee to be when thou wast a shepherd, and let not Venus' words be vain in thine ears, since thine were imprinted in my heart.
If it were unfit that goddesses should strive, and it were unreasonable that I should not yield, and therefore to please both attend. Diana I must honour, her virtue deserveth no less, but Venus I must love, I must confess so much.
Restore Cupid to Venus.
Pause there. Diana, restore Cupid to Venus is continuation of Neptune speaking.
Oh, thank you. Restore Cupid to Venus, and I will forever release the sacrifice of virgins. If, therefore, you love your nymphs as she doth her son, or prefer not a private grudge before a common grief, answer what you will do.
I account not the choice hard, for had I 20 Cupids, I would deliver them all to save one virgin, knowing love to be a thing of all the vainest, virginity to be a virtue of all the noblest. I yield. Larissa, bring out Cupid.
Exit Larissa.
And now shall it be said that Cupid saved those he thought to spoil.
I agree to this willingly, for I will be wary how my son wander again. But Diana cannot forbid him to wound.
Yes, chastity is not within the level of his bow.
But beauty is a fair mark to hit.
Well, I am glad you are agreed, and say that Neptune hath dealt well with beauty and chastity.
Re-enter Larissa with Cupid.
Here, take your son.
Sir boy, where have you been? Always taken, first by Sappho, now by Diana. How happeth it you, unhappy elf?
Coming through Diana's woods and seeing so many fair faces with fond hearts, I thought for my sport to make them smart, and so was taken by Diana.
I am glad I have you.
And I am glad I am rid of him.
Alas, poor boy, thy wings clipped, thy brands quenched, thy bow burnt, and thy arrows broke?
Ay, but it skilleth not. I bear now mine arrows in mine eyes, my wings in my thoughts, my brands in my ears, my bow in my mouth, so as I can wound with looking, fly with thinking, burn with hearing, shoot with speaking.
Well, you shall up to heaven with me, for on earth thou wilt lose me.
Enter Tyterus and Melebeus.
But soft, what be these?
Tyterus, yes. Eric.
Those that have offended thee to save their daughters.
Why, had you a fair daughter?
I and Melebeus a fair daughter.
Where be they?
In yonder woods, and methinks I see them coming.
Well, your deserts have not gotten pardon, but these goddesses' jars.
And enter Galatea and Phillida.
This is my daughter, my sweet Phillida.
And this is my fair Galatea.
Unfortunate Galatea, if this be Phillida.
Cursed Phillida, if that be Galatea.
And was thou all this while enamoured of Phillida, that sweet Phillida?
And couldst thou dote upon the face of a maiden, thyself being one, on the face of fair Galatea?
Do you both being maidens love one another?
I had thought the habit agreeable with the sex, and so burned in the fire of mine own fancies.
I had thought that in the attire of a boy there could not have lodged the body of a virgin, and so was inflamed with a sweet desire, which now I find a sour deceit.
Now, things falling out as they do, you must leave these fond affections. Nature will have it so. Necessity must.
I will never love any but Phillida. Her love is engraven in my heart with her eyes.
Nor I any but Galatea, whose faith is imprinted in my thoughts by her words.
An idle choice, strange and foolish, for one virgin to dote on another and to imagine a constant faith, where there can be no cause of affection. How like you this, Venus?
I like well and allow it. They shall both be possessed of their wishes. For never shall it be said that nature or fortune shall overthrow love and faith. Is your loves unspotted, begun with truth, continued with constancy, and not to be altered till death?
Die, Galatea, if thy love be not so.
Accursed be thou, Phillida, if thy love be not so.
Suppose all this, Venus. What then?
Then shall it be seen that I can turn one of them to be a man, and that I will.
Is it possible?
What is to love or the mistress of love unpossible? Was it not Venus that did the like to Iphis and Ianthes? How say ye? Are ye agreed, one to be a boy presently?
I am content, so I may embrace Galatea.
I wish it, so I may enjoy Phillida.
Soft, daughter. You must know whether I will have a son. Have you a son?
Take me with you, Galatea. I will keep you as I begat you, a daughter.
Tyterus, let yours be a boy, and if you will, mine shall not.
Nay, mine shall not, for that by means my young son shall lose his inheritance.
Why then, get him to be made a maiden, and then there is nothing lost.
If there be such changing, I would Venus make my wife a man.
Why?
Because she loves always to play with men.
Well, you are both fond, therefore agree to this changing, or suffer your daughters to endure hard chance.
How say you, Tyterus? Shall we refer it to Venus?
I am content because she is a goddess.
Neptune, you will not dislike it.
Not I.
Nor you, Diana.
Not I.
Cupid shall not. Cupid shall not.
And in extreme doubling circumstances, Cupid has to just...
I will not. That was confusing.
Then let us depart. Neither of them shall know whose lot it shall be till they come to the church door. One shall be. Doth it suffice?
And satisfy us both. Doth it not, Galatea?
Yeah, Phillida.
Enter Rafe, Robin and Dick.
Come, Robin, I'm glad I've met with thee. For now we will make our father laugh at these tales.
What are these that so malapertly thrust themselves into our companies?
Forsooth, madam, we are fortune tellers.
Fortune tellers, tell me my fortune.
No, we do not mean fortune tellers. We mean fortune tellers. We can tell what fortune we have. We have had these 12 months in the woods.
Let them alone. They be but peevish.
Yet they will be as good as minstrels at the marriage, to make us all merry.
Aye, ladies, we bear a very good consort.
Can you sing?
Basely.
And you?
Meanly.
And what can you do?
If they double it, I will treble it.
Then shall you go with us and sing Hymen before the church, before the marriage? Are you content?
Content, never better content. For there we shall be sure to fill our bellies with capon's rumps, or some such dainty dishes.
Then follow us.
And they all exit, apart from Galatea, unless she comes back on again, who does the epilogue.
Go all, 'tis I only that conclude all. You ladies may see that Venus can make constancy fickleness, courage cowardice, modesty lightness, working things impossible in your sex, and tempering hardest hearts like softest wool. Yield, ladies, yield to love, ladies, which lurketh under your eyelids whilst you sleep, and playeth with your heartstrings whilst you wake, whose sweetness never breedeth it's a word, satiety.
Satiety.
Labour weariness, nor grief bitterness. Cupid was begotten in a mist, nursed in clouds, and sucking only upon conceits. Confess him a conqueror whom you ought to regard, sith it is impossible to resist. For this is infallible, that love conquereth all things but itself, and ladies, all hearts but their own.
And thus the play ends. That's the end of Act 5. And we found out what Rafe, Robin and Dick are for. It's to sing at the end. And to provide some tunes and things, because that's what the young boys do. Though of course we've got an age range there depending on their singing voice, so we presumably have now an ordering of their ages based on whether they're bass in the middle or a treble. So yeah, fun times there. Thoughts from the room, I say. To see, we had the question the other day, are we heading towards the curse of the last session where we're all bitterly disappointed by the ending, or has it landed well for you? Thoughts from the room about where it's left you all. Who wants to leap in? Aliki, whose reactions were delightful. So
I mean, it's a happy ending. It's a happy ending for a modern audience, apart from the sermon. So yeah, I'm pleased. No?
I say nothing. I wait.
Making a face.
But it's very hard. This I'm still thinking about it. Like, on the one hand, like as a 21st century modern audience member, I was like, oh my God, this is actually Venus is gonna this is gonna work. We're gonna have, and then it's like, oh no, you're gonna turn one of them into a guy. Really? So like, as a 21st century audience member, I'm like, oh, for crying out loud. But taking that head off and putting on my sort of dramaturge head, I suppose, my head, that my more academic head, that thinking about this in terms of when it was written, it's not disappointing, because they do actually end up together, which is really, really lovely. But then, actually, having said yesterday that it would be an easy play to do for a modern audience, it kind of would in one way, but then it kind of wouldn't in another, because the only way they can be together is if one of them is magically turned into a man. Oh, okay, that's a bit disappointing. But then actually, the fact that Venus doesn't say which one she's turning into a man then does kind of undercut that, because it's also like, it doesn't really matter. The overall message, I suppose, at the end is, it doesn't really matter which one's a man, which one's a woman. It doesn't really matter what sex they are. They just get to be together, so they're happy. So actually, yeah, maybe it's not disappointing. I need to think about this some more. I did enjoy it though. What the hell was happening in that epilogue? I still haven't quite worked out what was going on there.
there's something really interesting about that no decision is made. You've got Venus going, yeah, I don't care.
Yeah.
Diana being really antsy. But I think the great advantage with the whole discussion about who wants to will make one of you into a boy, then the question going to the fathers who are just going, oh, well, but what about property? Who's going to inherit what? And suddenly it becomes this really weird practical and deferring it and saying, well, it might happen in the future kind of thing, leaves the play quite nicely dangling, and then you get some people come on and do some singing, which I think is perhaps the best of worlds that you can go with, because it sort of covers so many potential bases there, and also I think it provokes questions and discussion in a way that a more definitive answer wouldn't. So I quite like that in terms of what audience response might be. I saw lots of hands. I think Alexandra was first, then Lynn.
I quite like the counterposition, the juxtaposition of the increasingly ridiculous efforts that the fathers are making to do whatever is contrary to what is currently occurring. I have a girl, she's very pretty. No, she's going to get taken away. I have to dress her as a boy. I now have a boy. But can your girl be sacrificed? And also, can look, she's actually a she. Oh wait, one of them is going to get turned into a boy. No, can that be your girl again? So I like the counterpoint between that and the truthfulness and the beauty of that relationship that develops between Galatea and Phillida. And I wanted to point out, when we were doing that scene, that at the end of their conversation about of the second scene, where they're kind of sussing out each other as being a girl, Phillida says, "I will follow him or her." We have this moment of complete acceptance, which I have never seen in this period. And so the fact that at the end we have Venus going, yeah, I'm down with that. They're girls, they love each other. That's fine. Oh, I tell you what will make everybody shut up about it. We'll tell them one of you's been magically turned into a boy. Okay, whichever one you like, it doesn't matter. Let's get you married, and then and it's I think put in that kind of interpretation, it would be much more easily acceptable and kind of a genuine happy ending for us as a modern audience. So I think that would be one way to stage it, is that Venus very clearly is not going to turn either of them into a boy. This is just the thing we're saying.
There's also a generational thing about this. There's something about the older the character seems to be, the more that they stupid they seem to be, or at least there's a certain absurdity to what they're doing. We were talking about it's the men being enforcing the patriarchy, but it's these older, and they're mostly male figures, and so that there is this sense of the younger generation don't care. And so that might have an interesting connectivity to things. Lynn.
Yeah, I really like what everybody says so far. Bouncing off of Robert, the men, I think, are kind of figures for the social order in general. It matters to them that one's a boy and one's a girl, and they want gender stability for their child, and the lovers don't care, as long as I'll be the boy. There's a joke where two women are roommates and one of them is gay, and finally decides that she's been hiding this, and she sits her roommate down and says, "Listen, I have to be frank." And her roommate says, "No, it's okay, I'll be frank." It's like a joke. So it's just like so I do think it's really important that it doesn't matter to the lovers who's got to transition. They just want to be together, and I like the idea of hinting very strongly that that it's not actually even going to happen. Something like unrelated to this discussion, though, I feel a little like Diana kind of gets short shrift. The goddess in antiquity was much more complex than just I hate love. She wasn't really a goddess of permanent chastity. She was kind of a guardian of women outside the sphere of influence of men before they're married and in childbirth. And we completely forget the fact that Diana was patroness of women in childbirth. So, I mean, I resent a little that Diana gets made to be like such an unpleasant character, and it's and such a shallow look at her. But I guess it facilitates the sex positive, the eroticism positive happy ending that we have.
To be fair to Diana, she's had a really bad day. She has had her world invaded with lots of things happening without people's consent. So there are all sorts of interesting issues and questions there. I'm going to have to go around the room for final thoughts. I will go to Eric. Final thought.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Aside from the being changed into boy part, which we just discussed, but like it's a very sort of twist all the way through, because you can just see it getting worse and worse basically for everyone. Like the monster is going to come, and it's sort of like in very I don't know, I think the modern equivalent might be sort of wedding planning films where things go wrong until the last minute, and then it sort of falls into place. But it's very just a good ending, I guess, sort of, or like sort of overall just a good feeling, a good pop film kind of vibe, I guess.
Excellent. Rachael, final thoughts from you?
I think compared to the last Lyly one, I kind of like this one better, just because that the part between Galatea and like Phillida wasn't something I expected to see, and I think because the text is so many hundreds of years old, that there's positives, there's a positive way that he approached this, and there's also negative points in the way that he approached this, because I think this is definitely something that he was pushing the limits on. If it was being played like not for comedy but just straight, I'm sure there's comedic moments in this. Also, it's not just the question of sexuality and gender, but them being changed into a man, I think also brings in, the changing of like their role socially for one of these people, that they're going to have the social power of a man when one of their fathers is talking about their inheritance. So I think there's modern critiques for it, and then there's also modern positives to that end. So I don't know if I because there are those critiques that I can have, I don't know if I see it positively, but I think it's such an interesting scene to look at. And overall, I'll give this one a thumbs up, a little bit of a thumbs up.
I think we can always find issues that we can fix. I think if there are any issues, they are things that can be fixed in production perfectly happily, or at least spins that could be to be given to the text. And it's always that question of how many options does a text give you? I think that's when we really get excited in saying, well, actually, this scene can be played in funny or tragic or both, which we had two scenes earlier, and also just the way you angle it changes how it functions. And again, unlike the last one, Sapphire and Fair, this is a much more structurally cohesive play. It does feel like it flows in one direction, and even if the subplot feels a bit separate, it at least is quite consistent throughout, and it pops up every so often in a way that's really very satisfying. So that makes me happy. I'm a structuralist at heart. Francis, final thoughts?
I think somebody mentioned yesterday that it feels like two plays. I kept waiting for the two strands to come together. And when Dick, Robin and Rafe finally turn up, they didn't really have any bearing on the main plot. As you say, they're just there to sing at the end. So that in that way, the play's unsatisfactory. But there's some lovely scenes in this play, and the writing's great. And I found the gender fluidity very interesting and very surprising for a play of this time. I'm not sure how I feel about the ending itself. I mean, I'm glad Phillida and Galatea didn't go off with two guys. I'm glad they wound up together in some form at the end, but I'm still not sure about the actual ending.
Yeah, we were predicting that, or some people were predicting the other day that that Rafe and Dick, etc., would be brought on as marriage substitutes. And it is true that the subplot is basically separate and has no connection. So either has to be done incredibly well and has to be hilarious, or it is potentially removable. It creates a few dramaturgical scene flowing issues, but if you decide that shtick is not for you, then it would not harm necessarily for it to be taken out, though it does change the tone a bit and move things around in interesting ways, even if it doesn't do what we want from a play, which is total unity of all action, which is a sort of very much a modern thing. Helen, final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm thinking a bit about the set. I mean, we've got this oak tree and the edge of a wood on the shore of the Humber. And it seems to me that it is a static set and that everything that happens is people coming on and saying their part and then going off again. But it makes things very difficult for the boys, because they, especially Rafe and his various masters, they seem to demand a far more urban setting. Now, whether you could have a drop of some sort that comes down in front of the tree, or whether you could have, though they keep on saying that they're in woods, or whether there's some sort of cottage in the corner for Galatea and her father. I don't know. But I think it is a single set.
Yes, it does present us with that thing of being able to build a nice, consistent, really beautiful set, and then play with the lighting options. It doesn't feel like it's moving. All of those, I agree in that sense that the tone of those of the subplot, it does feel more urban, but it is constantly going. Making those lampshading moments of, we're out walking away from this person, or we're working towards these, and so it's a sort of internal inconsistency. But I think we can build a lovely set around this. It's always nice doing trees and things. We should have bunny rabbits, real bunny rabbits. Alan,
It's
final
been done.
thoughts? Yeah, it has for many a play.
Yeah, I mean, it's an enjoyable piece or two pieces. I think I would be inclined to prune out the second strand of the lads, the alchemist, the astronomer, the mariner, because I don't think that actually adds anything to the main flow of it. I think there would be a problem because we would lose one level of irony or drama within it, which is the fact that originally all of the girls would have been cross-dressed boys anyway, and when you're getting this sort of double and triple cross-dressing, that adds to the echoes. There's some lovely wordplay, and I still can see absolutely no point in why the hell this is set in Lincolnshire. It don't make sense, because all of the names are Greek, or certainly classical Mediterranean, and why Lyly decided to set it in Lincolnshire, unless he got some sort of sponsorship deal somewhere, I just do not understand.
Yes, he did. Unfortunately, Stephen Longstaff was talking about this. He thinks that there is an element of Cecil pleasing here.
Ah, Right.
Him being a Lincolnshire landowner.
It doesn't get mentioned very much in the actual text itself. It's a very, very rare occurrence. I don't want to go too much on this tangent, but Aliki,
I
final
just
thought.
want to say you wouldn't want to have it in a wood outside Athens. That's all.
Fair enough. Aliki, do you have any additional final thoughts? Very wise. Lynn, final thoughts.
Yeah, just really quickly, another thing I enjoy about this text is that the central couple is female. The Renaissance, people in the Renaissance in the early modern period admired strong, intimate male homosocial bonds very much. That was considered basically the purest, best kind of relationship. If your soulmate was another man, a sort of reflection of yourself, there's a lot of evidence that was a deeply admired type of relationship in this period. And the fact that the central relationship isn't between two male characters, although the performers were male, it's just something else I really like about it.
Sarah, with time is moving on, but any additional final thoughts?
Well, I sort of said my thoughts as I was thinking them. I did like Alexandra's idea for Venus sort of saying, "Oh yes, we'll turn one of them into a man," and that would be a really smart way, I think, of doing this as a modern production. I also feel you could quite happily write out the subplot. I do feel, though, that this play does need a subplot of some description. I'd be really tempted to replace it with a different subplot. Because
it's interesting, structurally it doesn't need it. The subplot isn't there to divide any scenes. It literally doesn't divide characters who meet with themselves.
Just for the
Alexandra's got final
play.
thoughts in a moment. She'll leap onto this point, I feel.
Yeah. Just for the richness of the play, I feel you have the sense that there's a lot going on in that wood. And if you take out the astronomer and the alchemist and Rafe and all Pete and all the gang, there's not really so much going on in that wood, and you want to keep that sense that there's a lot going on in that wood. But I don't know. I'd be tempted to kind of create a new subplot that kind of tied more into the gender fluid main theme of the play. But that would be a shame, because Lyly isn't done enough anyway. So then to start changing him would be a bit pointless. But I don't know what I'd do with that. But I think it's a great play, and I think it should be done.
Alexandra, final thoughts.
Yes, so I think that the subplot, I agree with everyone who says that the subplot does not link in structurally from a narrative standpoint, but I think it's very valuable from a tonal standpoint. That is, in that way, it's doing something really, really good, which is it's giving us the comedy relief somewhere else, so that we can be serious in the bits that are the sort of the romantic plotline, and sort of move around between levels of seriousness in the plot with the nymphs. So they can be ridiculous in their kind of all falling over themselves, falling in love with these two boys. But at the same time, when you introduce Diana, you can have that be a serious kind of powerful goddess, intervening to go, please don't do something stupid. When you've got the Hebe plot line, that's a brilliant moment of incredible tension for an audience that doesn't know what's going to happen, if you want to set it up that way. And it only works because there's funniness before and funniness after. So yeah, I don't know how you'd amend it so that it makes more sense, or so that it kind of it's more necessary in a narrative way, but in a tonal way it's very useful. And I think there's one more thing that it does really well, the subplot, although it is also not my favorite, is it adds more male characters. So it contrasts what Robert was talking about earlier, where you've got the older generation. It's a generational thing. It's not that all men are bad and all women should love each other. It's that there's some the men in power want to maintain that power and want to maintain their structures. You've got these boys who are just following any leader that they will. You've got these other male characters who are possibly charlatans. So it diversifies. If you take that plotline out entirely, you run the risk of saying something else.
Tamara, final thoughts. We are very over time.
Just briefly, the ending caught me off guard. I loved it. I'm kind of upset that I missed the first bit of this play, and I definitely put it on my list to look at in terms of actually doing that one on a stage at some point in my life. And I think you know, there's so many possibilities that you can have discussions, especially with LGBTQ representation in this play, that I think it's something that should be done more.
Okay, we have run out of time. I think I'm only going to throw one additional thought on the question of the subplot of if one of the things about plays like this is always looking for angles in terms of making them cheaper, and this is actually an incredibly doubleable play, and actually it makes your life a little easier in terms of doubling if you just completely chop out the subplot, and that this could be turned into a very, very tourable vehicle for half a dozen, maybe slightly more. I haven't done a proper count of how it would all function, but it could be done on a very condensed staging, and I think quite effectively. But of course, in an ideal world, we always like to do it as complete as possible, with as many actors as possible. But you know, we have to build the audience for that, and sometimes you can only finance so many actors. So the nice thing about this play is you could do both, and you've got those options, and it doesn't structurally damage the play. It may damage it tonally. If you wanted to do it with a little over a handful of people, it is doable. So lots of possibilities for this play, both in terms of what it offers us as drama, but also what it offers us practically in terms of getting the damn thing on. And I always like that in a text. It's the further you go in time into the 16th, into the 17th century, the harder it is to create small-scale versions of plays. So it's always nice with a play that on paper looks like it's got a cast of thousands, actually in practice doesn't. So I always like that. On that note, thanks to all the readers, including those who've had to nip out early, and farewell.
Bye.
Bye.